guys, we are back today again for our Indiana State Conference, the third annual state conference coming for, it's on January 17th through the 18th. And we have our special guest today. His name is Mr. Roger Valdez. He is well known for being the director of Seattle for Growth. And he's also one of the writers for Forbes. So we are very blessed to have him today kind of tell us a little bit of a sneak peek of what to expect for him being at our event coming January 17th through the 18th. So let me introduce you, Mr. Valdez. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. So really excited. I just kind of want to ask you, what is your topic going to be on? You're one of our main speakers coming up. Just give us a little bit of a sneak peek of what your topic's going to be on.
Well, I'm going to be talking about the growing trend in real estate, especially in tenant landlord law and regulation, where we're seeing more and more efforts to regulate the relationship between, people that run and manage rental property and their customers, tenants.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the corrosive effect that that's having on private property rights. That's probably the easiest way to state it. It's a real problem across the country. We're seeing a lot of regulation and rules and efforts to try and fix, for lack of a better word, something that really isn't broken, which is the relationship that people have when they're looking for a place to live and people that provide the housing for them.
Okay. So would you say that, are you seeing more the landlords are, I guess, need to be more cautious and careful? Or are you seeing more that basically tenants are being taken advantage of? What are you seeing more between the two?
Well, what's happening is there's a sort of a disparate and scattered effort across the country to do things like limit a property owner's ability to screen tenants that are moving into their property. So whether it's an apartment or a single family home,
Mm-hmm.
there's pressure on the system to not allow credit checks, not allow criminal background checks, to require the property manager owner to take the first person that shows up.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is an effort supposedly to help favor the tenant.
Okay.
And the movement behind it is really all about favoring the tenant over the landlord or over the owner in a way that slants that relationship so that people basically can rent your property, and you can't sort of choose which person you want to rent it to. And that's a real problem because they're also limiting, what you can charge for rent. There's rent control proposals. And then there's also things like limiting the ability to evict someone. So if someone doesn't pay their rent for a couple of months, there's a regulatory effort to try and prevent you from doing that. In fact, tomorrow, our city council is going to consider here in Seattle what they're calling a winter moratorium on evictions. So 5 months out of the year, you won't be able to evict anybody. So first of all, it's important to note that there are very few evictions. And even in a city like Seattle that has 168,000 rental units, in 2017, there were about 600 actual removals. So if you think about that, that's less than 1%. It's actually 0.3%
Mm-hmm.
of all the rental units. And they want to ban it from happening at all 5 months out of the year. So you can imagine what that does to tenants who are paying their rent and paying it on time, and someone down the hallway, decides, well, I'm not going to pay rent anymore. So it's a real corrosive effort on the part of a lot of different advocates across the country to erode that relationship that property owners have with the people that they serve, which
Mm-hmm.
is.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm fairly new with rental properties, and I'm shocked actually by hearing you say that's even an issue. So definitely for somebody who's new in this and somebody who's been doing this for a while, that's definitely something to be aware of at least, and to try to stay updated with the movement that's following this. So that's very, very interesting to hear. And I'm sure you're going to provide different ways that we can have a voice and the things that we can do um, for this. So, um, Mr. Valdez, how long have you been doing this for? How many years have you been doing this?
Well, I've been director of Seattle for Growth since 2013, but I've been doing work in government relations advocacy, in public health, and in urban planning, and also advocacy in general for neighborhoods, and in education since about 1994. So about 25 years. It's hard to believe that it's been that long, but
Yeah,
that's been my experience, and mainly here in Washington State, and now doing more work across the country in this area as well.
great. So I guess something that I like to really ask people, 25 years you've got under your belt. What is something that you would say to yourself, uh, just stepping into this business, into the real estate business? What would you say to your younger self 25 years ago, looking back now, that's something that could have really helped you?
Well, first of all, people that are in the real estate world are doing a good thing. So it's important for anyone to understand that when you're getting into the field of real estate, whether you're looking to manage properties, or to sell as a real estate agent or wholesaler, or an investor, or whatever that is, this is a business where ultimately what you're trying to do is provide a much needed service for people, which is housing. So it's a good thing.
Mhm.
A and it's an important function in the community for people to connect people to what they need the most, which is a place to live. So that's an important thing. I always want to make sure people understand is that you're the good guys. You're doing a positive thing. There's nothing wrong with um, making a living providing housing for people. Having said that, I think if there was one thing that I would say is, I think you have to define your career or your future based not on a job, but more on sort of what are the deep things that you really care about, and how do you align those with making a living. And what I've found in the real estate world is that a lot of the people that I've met and have seen and been mentored by are people who really followed their passion and their desire to have freedom and flexibility, and to be entrepreneurs. And so I think that that's a really important thing for people to follow. There's nothing wrong with having a job and working 8 hours a day and getting a steady paycheck, but there's also something really satisfying, I know, from making a living, and the harder you work, the more money you make, and when you don't work as hard, you have that freedom on the other side. So I think keep that in mind, and it's a choice that you can make.
Hmm. That's great. Well, I am really looking forward to meeting you and shaking your hand, and just, you've already said some great nuggets and for things to be aware of being in this industry. I'm sure, we're from Indiana, you're from Seattle, but I'm sure there are some differences, but I'm sure there's definitely a lot of things that are on the same, um, things that we do need to be aware of and understand the effects of what can happen. So, really looking forward to having you come. You're going to be speaking on Friday evening, and
Right.
you'll definitely still be around Saturday. So I'm sure a lot of people are going to have so many takeaway from this. So, Mr. Valdez, thank you so much for your time. I'll
Yeah.
definitely be posting a link for your website on this post, and we'll definitely looking forward to having you. Thank you so much again for your time.